Summary of Journey to the Center of the Earth. One day, while Professor Otto Lidenbrock, the renowned geology professor, was engrossed in his study of ancient sciences, he came across an old book belonging to the ancient Icelandic nobles. The book was written in an unusual language, an old runic script, which the professor understood only partially. As the professor struggled with his attempts to decipher the book, he found a small paper hidden within the pages, containing a mysterious code. The professor tried to solve it but couldn't. At that moment, his nephew Axel entered the room by chance, noticed the paper, and read its contents. Suddenly, with little effort, Axel deciphered the code. Brave traveler, descend from the crater of Snæfellsjökull, which is touched by the shadow of Skartaris softly before July begins, and you will reach the center of the earth, just as I did. Signed, Sagnosum. Without hesitation, the professor decided to follow the instructions and journey to the center of the earth. Axel, however, was not thrilled about this adventure. He tried every way to persuade his uncle against it, warning that science proved such a journey to be impossible, as temperatures increase drastically as one descends into the earth. How can we endure that? He asked. But the professor, with determination in his eyes, replied, what if there is a point deep inside where the temperature does not rise? We will never know until we try. The professor was set on going ahead, and in a matter of hours, they packed their bags, gathered equipment, and made the irrevocable decision. The next morning, the eager professor and the astonished Axel embarked on their journey. After 10 days of travel, they reached the coast of Iceland, where the great two-peaked mountain awaited them. With enthusiasm, the professor exclaimed, Snæfellsjökull. The mountain that would lead them to the depths of the earth. In Iceland, they met Mr. Frederiksson, a science teacher from Reykjavik, who warmly welcomed them and provided valuable advice. The professor discovered that the church had burned the books of the author mentioned in the code, Sagnosum, considering him an enemy. However, there was no time to mourn the lost books. Mr. Frederiksson suggested that they explore the Snæfellsjökull volcano, and the professor immediately agreed. The journey was quickly arranged, and they were joined by a skilled guide, Hans, a quiet and tall man, who would accompany them on their unknown adventure into the depths. With every step, Axel's anxiety grew, while the professor remained filled with enthusiasm. Professor Lidenbrock meticulously prepared everything needed for the monumental journey to the center of the earth, a thermometer capable of measuring up to 150 degrees Celsius, a barometer to measure pressure, a chronometer to track time, a compass, ropes, and enough food for their perilous adventure. In the evening, they arrived at a small village near the volcano, where the strange sky caught their attention. In Iceland, the sun does not set during the months of June and July, staying suspended in the sky all night. When the professor told Hans, their guide, about their intention to descend into the volcano, Hans made no objection. He was calm as always, but Axel's heart raced with fear. He had a strange worry: what if the volcano suddenly erupted while they were inside? It wasn't the descent itself that troubled him, but the thought of being trapped in danger without a way to escape. However, the professor, with an answer for every question, reassured him, don't worry. Before a volcano erupts, steam rises strongly, and that will be our warning. This seemed to comfort Axel and gave him hope for their unknown journey. They began their ascent of the 5,000-foot volcano. During the climb, a terrifying event occurred: a massive rock mass attacked them. Had it not been for Hans' alertness and quick action, the rock would have cost them their lives. Finally, after a strenuous and difficult journey, they reached the summit of the volcano in the middle of the night. The air was thin, and oxygen was scarce at such heights. Hans looked at them and said, this is the summit of Skartaris, the very place the mysterious writer Sagnosum had mentioned. They began their descent into the volcano's deep crater, tying themselves to a long rope to be ready to rescue anyone who might slip or if the icy ground beneath them cracked open. At the bottom of the volcano, they discovered 3 enormous openings, chimneys that vent volcanic gases when active. Near one of the rocks between these chimneys, the professor noticed an engraving. Filled with joy, he exclaimed, "It's Sagnosum. The same man who guided us here." After this moment, the porters decided to return, and the group rested for a while. Several days passed while they waited for the sun's rays to fall on one of the openings, marking the critical point in their journey. On June 28, the sun shone brightly, and at noon, its shadow fell on the middle opening. They began their descent once more, each carrying a third of the supplies, and proceeded with careful, steady steps. As they descended deeper, the professor became increasingly fascinated by the geological formations and studied the rocks with scientific precision. After hours of descent, they reached a depth of 2,000 meters and entered a narrow passage leading to two different paths. Without hesitation, the professor chose one path. However, after days of walking, Axel began to suspect that the path they were following was not descending as they thought but was actually rising. When they reached the end of the path, they found it to be a dead end. Their water supply was running low, and despair crept into their hearts. They decided to return to the point where they had branched off, but Axel, exhausted, collapsed from fatigue and thirst. At this point, the professor surprised him by pulling out a water bottle he had kept just for Axel. Axel drank the small amount of water, but his heart was filled with frustration. While Axel insisted on returning, the professor was determined to continue. Hans, their quiet guide, remained silent but was prepared to follow the professor's lead. Finally, after a long argument, the professor agreed to give them one more day to explore the new passage. If they didn't find anything, they would return. During this final day, something unexpected happened. As they continued walking, Hans struck a rock with his axe, and to their amazement, water began to flow, a hot spring, forming a small river that followed them. They drank from it and called it the Hans Bach, in honor of their guide. Reinvigorated by this discovery, Axel and the professor decided to continue their journey deeper. They descended through another opening, with the professor confident that it would take them to even greater depths. After 2 weeks of continuous descent, they reached a depth of 90 miles beneath the Earth's surface. But then, something unimaginable occurred. While walking in the profound darkness, Axel suddenly realized he had lost sight of his companions. He frantically searched for them but heard nothing but the silence of the earth. After hours of wandering, he finally heard his uncle's voice. Axel cried out, but the distance between them was more than 4 miles. Desperate, Axel stumbled down a rocky slope and fainted. When he regained consciousness, he found himself in a completely different place. The ground beneath his feet was covered with pure white sand, and a strange light illuminated the area, coming from a hole in the sky. The sound in the air resembled the roar of the sea. Looking around, Axel discovered something amazing. There was a sea, sand, and even a forest of trees. The professor, filled with excitement, shouted, "This is all beneath the earth." They decided to sail across this unknown sea on a raft expertly crafted by Hans. With every passing moment, new surprises awaited them. Hans, ever ready for anything, tried fishing and caught a strange fish without eyes, teeth, or a tail. As they continued their journey, they encountered an unbelievable sight: 2 giant creatures battling in the sea, nearly capsizing their raft. But the surprises didn't stop there. They passed a small island, which Axel named Axel Island, and as time went on, they ventured even deeper into the earth. But the weather began to change dramatically. The sky grew dark, and strong winds began to howl, followed by a terrible storm with rain pouring down like waterfalls. After several hours, the storm subsided, and they were carried by the waves to a strange shore. Once they landed, they discovered they were back where they had started. They were in a closed loop, as if the earth itself were mocking them. Axel asked in disbelief, "What now?" The professor, smiling, replied firmly, "We go back." Hans made a new raft, and they set off again. But after a short distance, they were shocked to see enormous mammoths walking along the shore. Strangely, there was a human beside them, as big as the mammoths themselves. They fled in fear, returning to their raft, and as time passed, they discovered an ancient rock with the name, Sagnosum, engraved on it. The professor, thrilled, declared, "I will carve my name here beside yours in the heart of the earth." But then, a massive rock blocked the passage where Sagnosum had gone. They decided to use explosives, and when the rocks exploded, immense heat surged upward, and water rushed through with the raft, leading them to discover they were in the heart of an active volcano. The heat was unbearable, but just as they thought they might perish, the trio surfaced on a new and mysterious shore. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. See you in more stories.